All right, I'm recording.
Welcome to the Alien Probe Podcast. On June 25th, 1950, the North Korean Army swept down across the 38th parallel, and the Korean War was on. The UFO was no longer a news item, but the lady or gentleman who first said, "Out of sight is out of mind," has never reckoned with the UFO. Today we're still studying the report on unidentified flying objects by Robert J. Ruppelt. Joined again today, Dr. Bill. Bill, what's up?
Hey,
What's
how you doing?
new? Living the dream, brother.
Nothing much.
Always.
What's that?
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Living the dream.
Things seem to be
nothing
working.
Much is new.
Hoping to get the echo out of, our
recording.
Our recording. I know we had an Apple comment from a person that said he likes the series but unhappy with our sound. So we're working on that. So work in progress.
We're climbing the technology tree
as we crawl through the report of unidentified flying objects. And really what we're trying to do is, again, for those that haven't listened to the prior episodes, we're trying to tie together the past and the present of UFO sightings and experiences of the military in looking into these incidents. And today, go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
And the history and
because it's the
as
same.
we mentioned before. Yeah, it's the same. We're seeing a repeat of all the stuff that was happening in the early 1950s, like 1947 to 52, and we're seeing that now with the report to Congress and all the press and stuff.
So the Congress got their report, which wasn't the report the report we got, which said nothing. But Congress got a report that had top secret information that we may never know.
We got the 9-page report, but I'm hoping.
Your sound's cutting out, sir.
Well, they have 143 sightings. And I was hoping that they would give information on the sightings, but they just mentioned the numbers.
Well, they're going to mention the fact that they saw them and it was on radar, and we can't track them, and we don't have the technology, and we know nothing. And now it's 1951 again.
And they're going to use this technology called computers.
Oh, they have those.
To try and sort it out using AI and computers, yeah. Which is funny because. This is exactly what J. Allen Hynek had said in the 1960s, that when he thought that the government was going to take UFO sightings seriously, he was saying that they should use computers to correlate the information. This is 1966. And now it's, what year is it, 2021, which is 55 years later, and they're saying the same thing. They said, we're going to use computers and AI, computers with AI, to correlate the information on UFOs or UAPs.
Well, we're going to go into this a little bit with the Pentagon Rumbles episode, but I mean, we had the computers in 1966 compared to the computers today. Your cell phone has much better computing power than the computers we had in 66. So, 2021. It seems
like 100 times.
So, we're okay. They can, at White Sands, and again, this is part of this episode. They were able to track this thing and they saw it on radar, right? Why today? I know you probably don't have I know your expertise isn't. I mean, you've been studying this, but I mean, why can't we track these with today's tech? Even though they're going 1,500 to 2,000 miles an hour. I mean, jet aircraft in afterburners, what are they, 1,800 miles an hour? I'm not sure, but it's up there.
The UAPs that they're seeing in the Atlantic and the Pacific, they're saying that they're tracking those on radar. So they're seeing with all the, that was in the report too. They were saying, the report said that the sensor technology isn't good enough, and it's not designed to track I mentioned this before, it's not designed to track things outside of their design parameters, which they're
Right.
designed to track
Yes.
airplanes and missiles and things like that. So, but they do have data. They've collected data, but they're also, it's the same story from the 50s.
Yeah,
They say that we
can't.
need more data. We need better data. And it's like, we need more instruments and they need more bigger computers.
We
and
need to know what
cameras.
we need to know what it's made out of. We need to know, what its propulsion is, so we know what we're locking onto. I don't know. It's weird. I just think it's weird that we can't. We don't know. I think I don't know. It's weird.
Well, one of the things that I just saw in one of Hynek's articles, and this is his article from. Oh, we're sort of doing UFO news, but there's no new UFO news.
No. So yeah, we have to. We're going to go back in
So we're
time
doing
again.
old news. We're gonna the
We're
Hynek wrote a letter to Science Magazine in October 21, 1966, when he felt that the government was starting to take UFOs seriously, and this was with they decided to award the contract to like the Condon Committee to study the reports.
Right.
So he was very optimistic, and he wrote a letter to Science Magazine about UFOs. And so that's the UFO news for this week. We'll talk about. But he also wrote which we won't talk about that much. But he also wrote an article about the same time. That Science Magazine is the publication of the AAAS, which is the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, and is considered the top science magazine in the United States. And he also wrote an article that's similar to the letter in Science. Are you opening a beer?
No. Back in my water. It's my water bottle. It's a little early. It's a little early. Yeah. Well, what time is it there?
It's for 12, you. It's afternoon for me.
12. It's okay. It's afternoon in Florida.
I'm gonna crack a beer.
Nah, it's even early for me. So yeah, it's only it's early in the. Well, it's 9:40 here, so whatever.
Okay, so he actually wrote an article in the Saturday Evening Post, which is sort of parallels the Science Magazine letter, which we're going to talk about. But we're this is the continuing frustration that we have, is that with this newer stuff, we just keep seeing a repeat of the 1950s.
Right.
And the biggest, I went through and I looked at some of the news this morning just to look at it. So the latest thing is on the news is, they're talking about people rehashing the 9-page report that just came out a couple weeks ago. And people or reporters or whatever talking about how it's acceptable to talk about UFOs without being considered a crank.
Well, I think we've determined that at least since we've started this last year. people, I go to many people and they just say, "There's got to be something out there." I mean, that's generally the response I get, because I'm not afraid to be called a nut, because there's no pedestal for me to pop off at work or anything. So I ask people, do you believe? I mean, people ask me that. Do you believe? I haven't seen one. I'm kind of researching the history as we, and we're hoping we get blown up by some news by the time we get done with this thing, that we can see one. It's caught. It's you can put your hand. Well, I don't know if they'll let us touch it, but we've got one. It's a drone. There's no little green man or gray in there, and then we're trying to figure out what's going on with it. It's probably, is it a drone from the future? Has it come? Is it from another dimension? Is it? There are things that they won't talk about that we think could be possibilities. The drone thing, I think everybody's kind of like, that's maybe, but like you said, it could be, it could be just about anything. But back to Hynek's.
So I sent you that letter. I also sent you we we answered the very important question: does the CIA read Playboy too? Because I sent you that article from Playboy
I didn't read
from
the Playboy
December
article.
1960s.
I got the Hynek one.
Well, it was what was funny was that was from the CIA archives.
Whoa,
Is
really?
where I found that. Yeah, yeah. You can see it on the thing I said. It's approved for release 2001-42. So, yeah, the CIA at one point did read Playboy because Hynek wrote a big article that's pretty interesting on around the same time. So you have these three articles that came out about the same time by Hynek. There's the letter in Science. There's the article in the Saturday Evening Post, and there's the article in Playboy, which they pretty much cover the same topic. So the letter in Science is a little more, I think he's addressing specifically the scientific community and saying that, there's something to UFOs, and this is why there's something to UFOs. And I find this remarkable because Science Magazine is like the top journal in the U.S., and the editors there were willing to publish his letter. So once the Condom Committee was, I think, formed and was going to take, was supposedly was going to take a serious look at UFOs. But in retrospect, it looks like the Condom Committee was, not all that it was cracked up to be. So
I see
again,
I'm just reading. I'm not really reading the play. I just noticed the cartoon that says, "I read your book, Miss Crane, and found it delightfully uninhibited." And there's a girl sitting there with her boobs hanging.
Oh yeah, that's the Playboy article. Yeah, this
I'm like,
really...
oh wow, where's this guy? What's this?
Yeah, it's a good article. It's a really good article.
I probably read it.
Classic.
I don't know. I probably read it. Did it say when it came out when that?
1969 was this.
I probably
1969.
My dad had Playboy. Just remember, they were just laying around the house, So before he married his last wife, I don't think she cared, but she had my stepbrother was rather young, and I don't know. I liked reading the. I liked reading the the Playboy Advisor. That was my favorite. I liked reading that. The stories of the Playboy Advisor.
Well, I know you from your dad's Playboy. I was introduced to the writings of Chuck Yeager. You remember not Chuck Yeager? The race car guy. What was his name? Yates.
Oh yeah.
Yates.
Yeah, he did.
I have a bunch of books by him. He did great. He's the guy that wrote the articles about the Cannonball Run.
Yeah, they did the gumball rally. Yeah, the gumball
or whatever
rally.
It was. Yeah, with the race across the U.S. where people were sitting.
Yeah.
He used to write great articles on. Yeah, I read it for the articles. He wrote great articles on car racing and cars.
Yeah.
And I remember he wrote an article about how his favorite car was the '67 Impala. Chevy Impala.
Oh, really? Love that car. That's a nice car. That's a great car. There's another. The one I read. Dan Greenberg was another one. I think his name was that would contribute to Playboy, and I read his articles about. I think he had a cross country article too, where they did that. They should do that today. They should do the gumball rally today.
Well, people do it.
We just don't know.
Well, they don't really do it as a race anymore. People do it as a to set the record. So they'll fix a car up with like big gas tanks, a fast car, and there's been a couple of records set. I think like last year somebody did it and set a new cross country record because their traffic was so light with the COVID lockdown.
Oh, really?
So people still do it. Yeah. I mean, you can see there's YouTube videos. You can see YouTube videos on it. Somebody did it last year, and good stuff. Yeah, those are fun times. Yeah, I don't. But and one thing about publishing in Playboy is that they paid really good money. So these articles, when you got published in Playboy, I don't know what they paid, but they give you a good chunk of change for publishing an article. So Hynek made out Whereas in
Yeah.
Science Magazine, they don't pay you anything.
Yeah. You contribute.
I actually have
You
a
contribute to the magazine.
letter published in Science Magazine,
Really?
and they didn't give me a dime. Yeah, yeah.
Oh wow!
So
Congratulations.
yeah,
So that's pretty. You,
yeah, that's
but
great. That and
Playboy's
$10 will get me a cup of coffee.
Playboy's not really around. Maybe you could have just put it into Playboy. You know.
Yeah, it wouldn't have fit there. It was on a specific topic, but
Yeah. What was it about?
yeah, that
though?
would have been worth.
What was it? What was it about?
I'm not going to say.
Yeah.
It's science related. It was political.
Oh, it's political.
letter.
So we don't want to talk about that.
Yeah,
we
it's
don't want to talk
political.
about politics.
Yeah, that's crap.
Politics.
Yeah, it
boring.
was the politics of science. It was crap. It was crap.
Oh,
But they published it.
was this after you left the university?
No, this was way
No.
before that.
Oh, really?
This was yeah, way before that. It was just addressing an article that they had written. Just my response to a news article they had written. But it was science politics stuff. So they just published my response. It was nice. It was cool. But it's nothing.
So
Nothing exciting. Not as exciting as this letter.
yeah, Hynek had a few things, about reporting in his article. We can kind of move to that. The only UFO buffs report UFOs.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
So he addressed the top 7 critiques of misconceptions. He says these are statements which lead to frequently made misstatements about UFOs, and only UFO buffs report UFOs. So
yeah.
and he's saying that
So the exact opposite. Yep.
Yep.
Is more nearer to the truth.
And he also said that UFOs are reported. These are misconceptions. UFOs are reported by unreliable, unstable, and uneducated people. And he said this is, of course, true. But he says an even greater number of reliable, stable, and educated people. So.
Yeah. That's interesting. So UFOs, yeah. So then the UFOs are never reported by scientifically trained people, but that's false, right?
That's false. That's false. He says there's most coherent reports have come from scientifically trained people. Says they are also usually request anonymity, which is always granted. He says UFOs are never seen at close range. I think this is the most interesting because he said he has several hundred files, 100 reports, which are fine brain teasers and could easily be made the subject of profitable discussion among physical and social scientists. But the Project Blue Book, I think, just automatically discounted these ones with people at close range, and I think he's being circumspect with this, saying the close range ones are like people seeing aliens. Right. This is the close encounters of the third kind, which I think the Project Blue Book just completely they said nope. So the Air Force has no evidence that UFOs are extraterrestrial or represent advanced technologies of any kind.
We don't know.
So we don't know.
We don't really know.
Oh, it's like it's like the report that just came out. They said, well, we're not saying it's aliens, but what did they say? They said we're pretty sure it's not. They said we're not aliens. It's not aliens. And then they're like, well, how do you know it's not? How do you know it's not aliens? Because we're pretty sure it's not aliens. So it's like, what? But we're not sure. It could be, still could be aliens.
But yet, we don't. They're not saying yes or no. That's the thing, right?
They
now.
did a convoluted. We're saying it's not aliens, but we don't know. And said UFO reports are generated by publicity. He says, yeah, that happens. But of course, that happens when people see a big UFO report, and then other people start looking around at the sky and stuff. So, oh yeah, that makes me. I've just booked a flight and actually I booked 6 flights.
Going overseas.
Yeah, it's 3 flights one way, 3 flights back. So it's a little. Oh, yeah,
They don't
I
have a
know.
nonstop. Nonstop to get
No,
gas.
no, 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 not for me. But I did upgrade it, so I have some perks. So
Oh, good.
that's yeah. Well, we'll see. Excuse me. But I was thinking I was going to bring binoculars with me when I'm in the,
They're gonna see
in my
it. People are going, what the
little
fuck is that
bag.
guy doing?
I'm gonna. Oh yeah, yeah. I'm
What
like,
are you doing?
screw it. I'm gonna.
Looking for flying saucers.
It's like if I see something, right? If I see
Yeah.
something, I'm gonna have binoculars in my bag.
Are you in window seat in
So,
first class?
uh,
That might be the
oh
best way.
no, I'm not first class. I'm not. I didn't upgrade that much. I just upgraded it to get some of the perks, but not.
So you get some food instead
I'm
of
not even.
nothing.
I'm still in. On overseas flights, they usually give you something because they don't want people passing out from hunger
Yeah.
or something. I don't know. They change things so much with the way flights are, and I'm still in the cattle class cabin.
Yeah.
So, but that's fine. But I got a few perks. Um, Mainly, I booked it because the fares for August September were amazingly cheap. I mean, I
Oh,
just
really?
like they've already gone. Yeah, I mean it's already gone up. I mean it's I just saw these fares and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna see if I can. I made arrangements and I booked a flight.
When
I
do
don't
you
know how
when do
long
you
is the
leave?
last. There,
I'll be in Florida in October, mid October
oh,
probably.
I'm here. I have a
Are you
wedding in
there?
October, but I'm here otherwise.
You
So
getting?
yeah,
Are you
yeah,
getting married?
we talked
You
about
getting
that.
married?
Yeah, what's that?
You getting married?
You're gonna, I'm, you're getting married?
Are you getting married? Is that you going to a wedding?
Oh yeah, I'm getting married. No, I have a former students getting married in October in Oregon.
Oh wow, that's a big
And
trip.
yeah, I yeah, I booked a hotel, and then yeah, we're really on the UFO topic here. I booked a hotel, and it was supposed to go last year. And I booked a lakeside cabin type thing, really nice looking little place, and then uh, the the pandemic struck,
And then
and
the
I have
pandemic.
so I called the guy up that owns the place. It's like a little lodge with 4 or 5 cabins, and I said, yeah, it's everything's been canceled, and I'd like to get a refund. He goes, I'll put you on the list.
Oh wow.
He goes, everybody's requested refunds. He goes, I'm out of money, and so I'm like, okay, what can we do? And he goes, I can just give you a credit. I said, book the wedding, so I said, just give me a credit, just put a
Yeah.
credit on the place.
Yeah.
So it's like, poor guy. The guy sounded terrible. It's
Yeah.
like, oh. So
These
I
guys
hope he
got
got
yeah.
some relief from the government. Um, so anyway, yeah, travel. I'm gonna bring binoculars. I might even try and do some interesting UFO related stuff while I'm there, but we'll see.
The
I don't know how that will work out.
yeah, that'd be cool. We can be the
Yeah,
reporter on the ground. Reporter on the
yeah.
ground.
Well, do something. Do something. We'll do something. We'll try and hook up. We'll try and hook up, and I'll do. Maybe we can do this when I'm over there.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey,
So I don't know.
so the UFO reports are did we do UFOs reported by publicity numbers? His 6 one can
Yeah, we did that.
and
And
then
and then UFOs have never been sighted on radar or photographed by meteor or satellite tracking cameras. And this was actually, I saw this somewhere else where this was a big critique, and it didn't make a lot of sense, and I think it was sort of wasn't clear. So what he says is that there are oddities on the scopes or films that have remained identified. It has been lightly assumed that although unidentified, the oddities were not identifiable as conventional objects. Were not identifiable. Okay, I don't know. Anyway, he says that there is information on these equipments and stuff, but the thing is there's so much pushback by the Air Force. I mean, the Air Force and the government has been pushed back really. Um, and I mean, the companion article that he wrote in the Saturday Evening Post and in the Playboy article, talk about later, but one of the things that he talks about is that Project Blue Book was a captain, which is, obviously not very high rank, a second officer, which is usually a lieutenant, I think one or two technical people, like sergeants or something like that. And so he was just saying that the Blue Book just had minimal staff.
They didn't have a lot of
So,
resources, but really, what are you going to, unless you just keep going out and looking at what people have seen, unless there's an actual crashed UFOs and aliens wandering or dead from the crash scene,
Well, there was, there was a lot of the main reason that the Air Force kept Project Blue Book going, or Project Grudge. We're still in Grudge. They just brought in
the
Pentagon Rumbles. Ruppelt was activated for the Korean War and put in ATAC. And that's how he got involved in the flying saucer thing. So he got into it, and the only reason that the Grudge was converted to Blue Book was because of political and public pressure. So the Air Force had to do something, and they basically did looks like what they did is they would do the minimum of what, in order to shut up Congress and the public. Say, oh, we got people doing it. So
in the 50s, we'll go ahead and shift over to the episode.
The book,
Pentagon
Rumbles.
Oh, we're never gonna get. I got the book in front of my face. So
never gonna get it. Well,
we're
never gonna get along.
Yeah, it's moving along. So we're in the 50s now, June 25th, where I began the episode, and then on September 8th, 1950, the UFOs were back in the news.
With the Behind the Flying Saucers book, which turned out to be a hoax. We'll talk about that at some point, because I got the book, and then True has a great debunking article on it.
Yeah, Dr. Gee was. They were the ones that had the fake, oil drilling operation that. That was phony.
I think he had a machine or something.
Yeah, but Air Force, or not Air Force, but military.
Well, the
surplus parts, $4
like
worth.
A machine.
Yeah, and
it's a war supply. Yeah, hit it. So to find oil, he had created a machine that would find oil, which is like a classic con.
Yeah.
So you make the magic machine, and you get someone to invest in it.
The classic.
And then Donald Kehoe's book came out. I think it was Flying Saucers from Outer Space, which is based on his article, which we've talked about, based on the True Magazine article. And Korea was going on. So
he was called
Kehoe was activated.
Yeah, and signed to ATEC, like you said. He flew. He had 2,000. He was a pilot, huh? 2,000 hours of driving.
He was a bombardier.
So he wasn't really a pilot. He was that's his flying time on the bomber.
And he's a B-29 bombardier. So he's the guy that would sit in the nose. And look through the Norton Bob sight, and then the pilot would turns over control of the plane to the bombardier, and the bombardier uses the bomb sight to steer the bombing on target. So
amazing back then.
The analog. What are they? They're analog. The analog computers that they used back then were amazing. There's at Pensacola, which is near Gulf Breeze, which we'll get to eventually. There's a big battleship there. I can't remember which one it is, and you can go and you can explore this battleship. It's on land. I think they moved it up on land.
A battleship that's
And
on land? That'd be crazy.
yeah, I think they designed it so they could get it out of the water. I don't think it's in the water anymore. I know they have a submarine that's not in the water, but it's a museum, so it's preserved, so it's better if it's not in the salt water.
Yeah.
And you go in there, and there's the battleships had analog computers for the guns. So I can't remember. This thing had three turrets with 2 or 3 guns per turret, and then there's this room which is actually the computer room, which has analog computers, which are gears and wheel computers
Wow.
basically. And each one would have like 2 people that would operate this thing to target the guns, and they would do the ballistic calculations with these machines were just designed specifically to do ballistic calculations, and you can actually go in there and look at them, but they're the size of I don't know, half of a average sized table, and you'd have 2 people would run it for each gun, each barrel of each gun, and they would put in the coordinates, and it would tell the gun where to point for and how much powder that they should load and all the other stuff for firing the cannons on the battleship.
And
It
then
was
they
all
put in the squirrel to run on this wheel, and then the wheel turned the thing.
I think they had electric motors to run them, but I mean it's amazing to see these things. They're specifically designed to do these calculations, and they just they're computers, but they're gears and wheels and some electronics. So it's really cool stuff. They did it similar with the submarines. They had the I forget what it's called, TDC, uh, for calculating the trajectory of torpedoes on the submarines, which is also a mechanical computer, electromechanical computer, and not just an electric computer.
We were. I remember
Cool stuff.
we visited you when you graduated in Chicago, and we went
Yeah.
Lake Superior. Are you in Superior? Is
Yes.
that? And we went on the submarine that was
Lake Michigan.
Lake Michigan.
Yeah, at the museum. Yeah.
I guess that would make
At
sense.
the
Chicago.
yeah.
So they just hauled this submarine there from the ocean, or were there submarines in Lakes Michigan and
Well, that
Superior?
submarine was a U-boat. That was a German U-boat. It was captured, and then they floated it in, and specifically to make it a museum exhibit. And they floated it in, drug it up on land, and put it at the museum. And that submarine, when they captured it, was a big deal because they were able to capture the Enigma machine, which when you go to look at the museum at the submarine, they have it in a case outside the submarine when you come in, the Enigma machine, which was the code machine that the Germans used.
Right. Now you say they floated it in. Is from where?
Well, they say they towed it in through the Great Lakes because you can get from the Atlantic Ocean all the way to the shore of Chicago by sea.
I didn't know that. I thought that it was completely cut off from the ocean. So is that salt water?
Well, it's fresh. It's fresh water. You have to use locks, but you can sail a ship into the Great Lakes.
Oh, I did not know that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
So
what happens when you live somewhere? You look a little detail.
You learn about what's going on with it. Well, my brother was Syracuse. He lived in Syracuse, and he had a fish camp there where he bought a place because he wanted to, so he was restoring this place on the shore somewhere. But he says the only thing you can catch there are pike. I guess there's a lot of pike.
Pike, yeah.
It's eating. Pike, they have pike here in California. They destroy the whole. We don't have pike here. Because they eat everything. All the real game.
Yeah. Well, this is the funny thing, and we're gonna way off topic here. But when I was doing my undergraduate degree in the San Francisco Bay Area, the ecologist and I think like Sierra Club and all this stuff were making a lot of noise about the water flow of fresh water into the delta, right?
Yeah.
And all this noise about the fresh water into the delta was to preserve the pike or the sturgeon. No, it was the sturgeon.
Sturgeon,
Which is
yeah.
pike, whatever the hell it is.
Sturgeon's that
And the
gigantic thing.
Yeah, and they were introduced. I think they might be the same. I don't know. I should know this. But they were introduced. They were an introduced fish. They weren't native to the Bay Area. So there's like all these ecologists and stuff. Well, now it's not the sturgeon anymore or the pike. It's the snail darter is the reason that they saved to put all this water into the delta. Oh, and I'm like, what happened to the other fish? I mean, they were like, we got to save this fish and blah blah blah. I mean, it's a horrible predator that was introduced as a game fish by some idiot years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, some crazy stuff. Now it's the snail darter.
Well, now they're putting up. They haven't done this since I think the 70s. They're actually putting in like rock so to prevent the salt water from coming in so far. Because the water's so low here. I mean, we're really critical out here in California. It's really bad.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
like a dike. It's like a dike. It's like a dike to prevent so much of the water from backwashing.
Yeah.
I guess you could say up into the rivers. In the delta coming into the delta.
Yeah, I understand it, but I wonder why don't they just release from Hetch Hetchy? I mean, that's,
I don't know.
I'm sure San Francisco's that's San Francisco's water. That is San Francisco City is Hetch Hetchy. It's actually part of the city. So
Wow.
they provide all the water for San Francisco and the peninsula.
Wow.
So it's like, well, why don't they just require the people in San Francisco and the billionaires in Silicon Valley and stuff to conserve water and release more water to save this snail darter? I don't understand why they're not doing that. Don't they believe in the planet?
What the hell's a snail darter? Is it a fish? Is it a snail? Is it a fish?
Tiny little fish. It's a tiny little fish, and probably eats snails.
Well, they got that other thing where the snails are all over the place they've fallen on. They were from Asia, and they fell off the ships there because they come all the way up the river.
The
Sacramento River.
Is it
It's
a zebra mussel or is it something else?
Yeah, it's something like that.
Yeah.
And now it's like taking over everything, and they're never going to get rid of that. It's gonna...
Well, I mean, that's an ongoing problem in the Bay Area. When I used to do, I took a class where we were doing field studies in the salt marshes in the Bay. You had all these introduced species that would drive the native species up to a very high sort of niche where they could survive. Otherwise, they would get eaten by the other snails. So this has been an ongoing problem. I mean, there's a lot of noise. People make a lot of noise about these problems, but they never really do anything. I mean, It's like you'll never see Hetch Hetchy release enough water to make a difference because San Francisco wants their electricity and their drinking water for all the wealthy people on the peninsula. So it's nothing will change. But what they'll do is they'll drain Lake Folsom, like near where you are.
Yeah. Which they're doing.
And compare the level at Hetch Hetchy to Folsom, and I'll bet you'll see a big difference. They go, oh, Hetch Hetchy, we can't do anything with Hetch Hetchy because we don't, it's San Francisco's reservoir.
Cut them off.
Well, Hetch Hetchy was, Muir called it Little Yosemite. He said he was heartbroken when they flooded it.
Yeah.
It's essentially, Hetch Hetchy it's as beautiful as Yosemite except a smaller version.
They
should dam Yosemite and turn that into a big reservoir. That would be a bonus.
Use Hetch Hetchy water to wash the sidewalks in San Francisco to make it someplace we'd really like to go again. But that's another story.
Well, that's another. God. Oh my God. I'm really sorry. I love the Bay Area, but it has really become
it's something.
Uninhabitable.
That's for sure. Yeah, expensive. It's so expensive yet so it's not a place you really want to be. So the we should probably
UFOs. Number 7. Let's keep talking about historical crap that has nothing to do with UFOs.
People are turning us off
UFOs
all over.
Okay.
Even India's going to give up on us at this point. So
India. Oh yeah, yeah. And you go, what are they talking about?
what are they talking
Snail
about? The
darter,
snail darter and sturgeon. But they
sturgeon.
had so they had a couple of incidents that he talks about. Um,
And we've the DC, the
yeah, the
one
DC
with
three. Well, one of the D seems to be a
see
lot of
that's
DC threes out there. So it was taking off from the
what
airport,
was
Sioux
it?
City, Iowa, and they saw the
Well,
large
that I think that was
object.
one of the early. The DC-3 was the early commercial jets.
Yeah.
So Mid-Continental Airline, they had, the older airlines had better names than they have now.
Well, yeah, they're a lot
So
cooler back then.
mid, yeah, yeah.
Well, look at
So
what
yeah, the
they're
DC-3.
look what they're naming the cars these days. I mean, have you looked at
Oh, I don't
it's
even pay attention to that.
oh yeah,
It's
there's
just
some
like it's
I can't think of it,
too
but there's
much.
some really horrible car names out there now because they've run out of all the cool names are gone.
Well, and it's a process
Impala.
too because they have to make sure that the name doesn't say something weird in another language too. So
Yeah.
they bend over, they do all these twists and turns to come up with a safe. It has to be a safe name now. Everything's got to be safe.
So
So
the B-36 saw the UFO and they said it
the
looked like the DC-3. It looked
yeah,
like the fuselage of a B-29 without wings and a
well,
exhaust plume. Don't
and
forget
that's.
the
I mean, I was saying that before I'd saying, well, if it has, this is the one that I was saying. I think it was a rocket test. But then there
yeah.
was that sighting
Yeah,
in
but
that.
it followed them. It
Yeah,
was.
so I'm having
It's
to.
not a
I
rocket
want
test.
to walk it back. Yeah, I'm walking it back now that I've read more stuff and look at more sort of descriptions of what's going on. So I'm walking that back a little bit.
Okay.
So if it does have a rocket exhaust, it can still, it's something. It's not a military test or something, because there was the one in Twin Falls, Idaho, which you talked about last time, where there was something that it might have looked like a Tic Tac, but the people reported it had heat and exhaust, like underneath it. It's like rockets or something underneath it, but they could
Well,
feel the heat and see like flames or something, like a, rocket thing. And it was following along a river, and it was definitely not anything that anyone had seen before. So
well,
rocket engines, I'm going to open up on that. Say rocket engines are a UFO possibility.
um, we're gonna have to disagree.
Oh, you
I
don't
don't
like
think
rocket
so.
engine stuff?
Not air
I
breathing rocket engines. I mean, it could be some kind of engine, but I mean, really, if you think about the
Yeah.
Lazar, I mean, Lazar is kind of a but
The,
I mean, if you think
the
about, he saw a UFO, somebody who actually saw one that we had allegedly, and
allegedly.
the glow from the back. I mean, I know we want to say
Well, there's
exhaust
a lot
plume.
of reports. There's a lot of reports, but one of the things that people do report, and there was the, I think we're coming up on that. There was the guy in, it's a widely reported one. There was a sheriff that saw something land out somewhere. It was a really good sighting. It's been well documented, and he, when it took off, it burned a patch on the ground, and he
Yeah,
felt heat from the exhaust. But it was a flying saucer, had little people. Um, speculation was maybe it was an experimental lander, moon lander type thing,
right.
that he saw, but that doesn't make a lot of sense. So that was a case where it was a clear cut. The guy says it was a UFO. Had the
Little
little
great.
dome, had the little people, and it burned some brush, and it gave off a heat signal, gave off heat when it took off. And I think he ran and ducked down behind his police car when it took off. So, and that
Did
was a big case.
did they investigate the heat air? The air that was burned and see what may have
Yeah, there
caused
was
that.
it was hugely it was hugely investigated, and they had like footprints, like from the pads, the landing pads, and there was a burned brush, and I think the FBI was brought in, and all sorts of uh, people and stuff. Um, and the guy was considered to be a very, very reliable witness. And his wife was interviewed it was covered in the movie Phenomenon, and his wife was interviewed. Um, but so I can point out 3 UFOs, including the one that looks like a B-29 without wings, that have some sort of rocket exhaust. So I'm walking it back and saying, well, the fact that it has some sort of exhaust that produces heat. And a lot of people talk about heat being produced, but there's also the light issue, where the intense light.
Right.
So, but there are reports of whatever's flying around does produce some sort of heat exhaust.
Well, they could have. I mean, it looks like. I mean, you're in '66. It's a light. Your mind might just be putting that heat signature on there. It doesn't look like an SR-71. Heat.
You mean
exhaust signature?
You're assuming
burning out.
You're assuming it's a rocket because of the heat that's giving off?
Yeah, it's giving a light.
Okay.
You're assuming it's got a exhaust plume that's fire because you see light.
Yeah.
And maybe the light is just part of, because I just don't think, I'm not with you on the air breathing exhaust rocket. I don't know what the propellant, that could be anything, but I don't think I don't think for the purposes of it being extraterrestrial that it would have air breathing propulsion. I just don't, I'm not a fan of that theory, but that doesn't mean shit. Doesn't mean it can't happen.
That's all I'm saying is because of these two additional sightings to this one, where people have reported some sort of exhaust, and one of them, the Twin Falls one, looked like it might have been Tic Tac shaped.
Right.
And the other one that this I can't remember his name. It starts with a V. There's no index in this book. He reported that it actually burned. He felt the heat and it burned a bush. Now, I don't know if that's an actual rocket exhaust, but there is, it suggests that it might be. Let me see if I can find his name, since I'm not.
Sounds a little bit like that could be more of an experiment. What year was that? Did we determine? Is that still in the 50s or did you get to the 60s?
That was in the 60s.
So it could have been. I mean, it could have been experimental something by us. But he saw aliens.
It was. He said he saw a couple little guys in like white coverall or something. I mean, I can't remember.
They were in a lab coat.
Yeah.
Lab coat.
Yeah, they were in lab coats. But they were saying that it was that it might have been like a moon lander. You know that moon lander, the one that
the lunar,
Armstrong. Yeah. Armstrong had to eject from when he was training.
Oh yeah, that weird one. Yeah, that weird.
It looks like a spider, and Armstrong was training in it, and it got out of control, and he did an eject on that.
Yeah.
It's famous footage. There's a great interview of the engineer that was in charge of that craft, and he says that what happened with Armstrong, he says it was his fault, because he wasn't there that day, and the guy that he trained wasn't trained well enough, because the jets, so the craft has this moonlander thing has a jet engine in the middle to give it upward thrust.
Yep.
And it has the thrusters positioned around the side, just like on the regular moonlander. And they, I think, use nitrogen gas to provide thrust for moving back and forth and stabilizing. He said the guy wasn't trained well enough, and he let the nitrogen tanks get too low.
So how's it Armstrong's fault?
Yeah, so he says the reason that Armstrong, he's the chief engineer. He said it was I listened to an interview. It was recent. He said he says yeah, it was my fault because I didn't train the guy to keep close enough eye on the levels of these nitrogen tanks because they monitor the craft while he's doing his training exercise, and he let one of the tanks get too low, and then Armstrong couldn't control it because he had no thruster control, and had to eject.
One thing I always
So, but that's yeah.
one thing I always muse about about old military training exercises, how stupid their mistakes are. It's like they're oblivious. Yeah, well, they don't think beyond their own nose. It's like anybody ever think that maybe we should have these tanks full? You know, it's they had to have that guy tell this guy, make sure it doesn't get low. But nobody thought, nobody told me how to do it. It's kind of like employees. You know, well, they didn't tell me exactly how to. You didn't think to, that the tank might be a problem if these tanks get low. Nobody told me that. Nobody told me that's a problem.
It's the I don't know. It's the military. Well, that guy was a NASA. These are NASA engineers.
Yes.
But when I was in the military, I was in charge of the electronic components for the missile system, the modules. So I was the module monitor. So when the techs needed a new module that was going bad on systems, they would come to me and they'd say, I need this module, and I'd pull the module from my van, and I'd give them the module, and they would give me the old module, and I'd tag it, and then, I'd take the old module to, the guys that would test it and repair them, and so the missile chute that I was on, I shut down the missile chute because the tech kept coming to me and asking for the same module, and I gave him all 3 modules to replace. He kept replacing the same part. Yeah. And then, I don't have any more modules, so I take the modules to the guy that tests them, and the guy tests all the modules. The modules are good. And so the tech kept coming and asking me for modules. I said, I've given you all the modules, and these are the same modules, and they're good. And he's like, okay. And he walks away, and that was it for this missile chute that was, that was supposed to be out there and shoot a bunch of missiles at drones and all this stuff. They fired one missile, and then they couldn't fix the system.
It was something other than the module then? Some other problem?
Yeah, and I asked about this, and one of the guys goes, well, the techs are trained they look in the book. So they got a big book.
Yeah.
And the book says, if this happens and this happens, you change this module.
Yeah.
So they kept changing the module, and the same thing kept happening.
I've seen that book. It's got like arrows, and it points. Okay, if this works, and if it doesn't, then you go this. Yeah. Then you go to that other arrow. It's a standard arrow. Sort of. Yes, no, go this.
It's stupid, and I'm like, I can't believe it. We spent a month setting the thing up, and then you're out there for another 2 weeks, and it's like after the first missile fires, it's like, okay, we're done. So, all right, because we can't fix our own equipment because we're too dumb. So it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know anything about it, but they couldn't fix it because the book said you had to do X, Y, and Z, and that wasn't working, so everything was over. So
it's the same book that AT&T customer service uses. Go here, go there, check this, check that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and we have to do it at home. And then we're checking it at home, which makes it even better. Yeah, friends at home. Did you do this? Did you turn it on?
You're looking at the same book.
Did they try turning it off and turning it on again? Turn it off and turn it on. Like, if that, it'll be fine. It has to reboot. So,
I was having a problem with my phone. Years ago, I was having a problem with my phone. This is early cell phones. It was like 10 years or more ago, and I couldn't call overseas. I couldn't receive calls or make calls when I was overseas or something, and so I called customer service, and I'm like, and of course they're sending you to somebody that can't do anything, and they kept telling me to do the same crap over and over again. I said, finally, I just went, okay. I've done all this. He goes, well, you have to do it again. I said, no, please, please give me somebody that can help me. And he goes, oh, I'll take you through this all again. I said, no, please listen to me. I said, give me somebody that can help me. And he goes, okay, hang on. And the guy that I've been talking to, you could tell was in a big call center because you could hear all this background hubbub.
Yeah.
And then I get this guy on. He goes, like, hello? And I go, yeah, I'm trying to make calls overseas with my phone and or receive calls, and it's not working. Can you fix it for me? And he goes, okay. I said, yeah, okay.
What?
What do I do? He goes, oh, it's fixed. He goes, it's fixed. I go, what? He goes, yeah, it's done. I fixed it. Oh, okay. And it was fixed. It was insane. It was absolutely insane.
Yeah, he went and clicked this little
just,
box.
It was like in quiet. Yeah. He goes, okay, it's done. It's fixed.
Yeah,
it's like, magic. So
the other guy couldn't do it. Just keep turning it off, turn it on, do this, hold your right hand
it was
up.
like walking you through all this stuff, and then, you know, just puts me this other guy that's probably sitting in a bunker in the middle of a mountain, one button fixed. So
jumping back, we're winding it down now. So we're jumping back to, where are we? Chapter 7.
We're
the Life magazine comes out.
It's rocking about rocket exhaust.
Yeah,
the Life magazine. We can mention the Life magazine that we haven't read.
Stirred everything. That stirred everything back up. We can come back to it at a later episode, but
yeah, we'll talk. I need to read it. I want to read
specifically.
I didn't have it,
but it re-energized people that weren't energized before about the UFO topic or the flying saucer topic. Correct? Is that what happened there?
Well, yeah, and the Life magazine was specifically, they were asking what the current status of Project Grudge was, and
that's when they went to all the file. They went to them. They went through all their file cabinets. They tried to find answers for all these things.
And they're like, you know, and then they, what did he say here? He says Bedlam in the Raw. He says he wants to. So another wire from Washington. Find Mr. Bob Gina of Life is leaving for Dayton, and that's where the Wright-Patterson is.
Yes,
to go to Project Blue Book.
Yes.
He wants to check some reports, and then it goes Bedlam in the Raw.
Yeah.
So Life magazine was doing a feature story. This is 1952 that this story came out, and Public Information Office. So anyway, and that sort of really brought out. I think this Life magazine brought out. I mean, there's a lot of articles coming out. There was the Look articles, which were debunking. And the Life magazine had the title of "Have We Visitors from Space?" And just looking at it, glancing at it recently, they have all these. They're giving incidents. Actually, we should probably talk about this next time. These incidents and these evaluations of these incidents through that. See what.
Well, then this is where they tried. They had the Air Force representative there, and went every time they asked a question, he went to a file cabinet. And many times came back. That's classified.
Yeah, I had to run out of the room or something. And
look for it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, that's classified.
I would call that not prepared.
Yeah, it was like every time.
Actually, for the interview.
No, they didn't have a clue.
So then our hero, Ruppelt, is moving along, and he's got another.
Ruppelt?
Yeah, he's got another pal.
This is Ruppelt. Just happened to.
Well, he's texting for what Ruppelt's doing right now. Is his job is to look to see the MiG.
But apparently the guy that was
he evaluated the MiGs is what his job was, to see performance, and so we can.
Now that was a big deal for Korean War, because remember, if you read, so you know why they started the Top Gun program in the Air Force.
Because we were getting our ass kicked in because we were getting our ass kicked in dogfights.
In dogfights in Korea, our pilots were just getting hammered by the Russian pilots in the MiGs, and so they started the dogfight. So Ruppelt's job was to evaluate the capabilities of the MiG fighters that were kicking our butts in Korea, and. And then he got shifted over.
Yeah, he was at ATEC, and he got shifted, and then he got a new pal. His name was Lieutenant Cummings, who was actually more of a UFO guy. Go ahead.
Yeah, and he apparently was on all these guys were just called up because of the Korean War. So they were doing their whatever duration. They were basically redrafted. They were in civilian lives and they were redrafted back into the military. And so Cummings, I think like Ruppelt and Cummings, they don't have a lifelong investment in or a career with the Air Force. They're just there for the duration of the whatever their draft status was.
All right, well, let's go ahead.
Cummings.
Yeah, we got to wrap up. We're in time.
Wrap it up. We got 3 more pages to cover.
I know. We'll have to. That's okay. We can cover the end on the next episode. Pick it up where we left off.
Cover the end, and we'll look at the Life. I want to look at the Life magazine article.
Yeah, absolutely. So
which I thought I'd read, I hadn't.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks for listening to the latest episode of the Alien Probe Podcast. We welcome comments, questions, and requests to alienprobepodcast@gmail.com. Visit us on Facebook at alienprobe.net, Twitter at alienprobepod, and see us on YouTube. And thanks very much because we're having a huge response there and on Facebook. So check us out. Thanks to our senior producer, Robert Anthony. Thank you, Dr. Bill, for joining us. I appreciate it.
All right.
We'll talk to you.
UFOs can have rockets. UFOs can have rockets.